taboo sex act. So this is doing something that is socially or culturally forbidden, such as anal sex or golden shower, like peeing on each other. Now, on the number three, that's the novelty, adventure, and variety. So, this is doing something that's new and different for you, such as maybe doing a different position. And based on this study, it's like um, having a sexual experience in a doggy style. That's actually some of the most common fantasy that people have, and or going to public, going to a different setting instead of the bedroom. They want to experience it in the car, in the garage, or in a public places. So those are some common fantasies that is under the novelty, adventure, and variety. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Gladys on Love. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Gladys. I have dedicated 2 years of my life really getting obsessed and very passionate about learning more about sexuality and also how to have a thriving and enlightened relationship. And I would love to give credits to all the books, the podcasts, and the mentors that I followed, such as Esther Perel, Ida Lucy, Vailana and Aubrey Marcus, and so many other amazing thinkers out there for sharing their work out into the world and for letting people like me actually learn from them. And it really helped me tremendously. I also would love to shout out my partner Eli, who have been very supportive in my quest to learning and growth. It's definitely amazing to be in a partnership with someone who is just very supportive of you. Now, for this content, I would love to share about the 7 most common sexual fantasies. And I've come across a research by Dr. Justin Lee Miller, who is a social psychologist, and he also runs the Sex and Psychology blog and a podcast, also an author of a popular book, Tell Me What You Want. Now, Dr. Justin Lee Miller did a survey to over 4,000 people in the US and asked them about their sexual fantasy. And he came up with this top 7 that are very common. And even though the research was conducted in America, I would definitely say that those things are also things that people here in the Philippines fantasize about, at least based on my experience for myself and for the people that I have talked and connected with here in the Philippines. I am so excited to go through those lists. So, for all of you who may have a lot of sexual fantasies, you'll know that you're not alone. And for those of you who also thinks that they don't have any sexual fantasies, that's totally fine. Maybe in this video, you'll figure out that, oh, I actually have that, and that's also normal. And hopefully, this would also unlock a bigger and wider understanding as to why we do have this kind of sexual fantasy. What's the psychology behind it? I hope that this video will be helpful for you. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please hit that subscribe button, click on the notification so you will be notified for my future videos. And if you love this video, hit the thumbs button and feel free to share this with other people that you think might benefit from this video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in on the list. I'm gonna start from the bottom to the top. So jumping into our top 7 sexual fantasy is gender bending and homoeroticism. Example of this are pushing the boundaries of your gender identity, role, expression, and or sexual orientation. So for example, you fantasize being with another woman, for a woman, myself, you're imagining being with another woman or maybe doing a role play, acting a different role. So, this is actually a very common fantasy according to this research. Now, on the number six is being in a non monogamous relationship. Examples are swinging, polyamory, cuckolding, or having an open relationship. Now, on the fifth list would be passion, romance, intimacy. Example being emotionally connecting with a partner or feeling loved and appreciated. At first, when I read this, I'm like, this is just what we expect to have in a relationship. But then I realized, like, when I was actually young, I definitely fantasize about these things. Like, when I'm single, I fantasize being in a relationship and being in a romantic and have all this, being loved and emotionally connected with someone. So if you have this fantasy, totally fine and totally common. On our number four is the taboo sex act. So, this is doing something that is socially or culturally forbidden, such as anal sex or golden shower, like peeing on each other. Now, on the number three, that's the novelty, adventure, and variety. So, this is doing something that's new and different for you, such as maybe doing a different position. And based on this study, it's like um, having a sexual experience in a doggy style. That's actually some of the most common fantasy that people have, and or going to public, going to a different setting instead of the bedroom. They want to experience it in the car, in the garage, or in a public places. So those are some common fantasies that is under the novelty, adventure, and variety. And I feel like I'm really drawn towards this, and I have so much fantasy in doing this kind of things. Now, on our number two, that's bondage, discipline, dominance, submission, sadism, and masochism, or for short, BDSM. This may be under number two, but I think a lot of people are afraid of this kind of fantasy. And maybe we've seen a lot of movies on how they do it. It's like inflicting so much pain and all. But there are a lot of people who've reported that they actually like to be in that dominance side of themselves. And there are actually people who are very submissive and love to experience those pain. And I probably have shared it in my previous video that I've experienced bondage. And for me, that was the most liberating experience that I ever had. And it was not even really a sexual act based on what you might have seen in the movie. I was just completely tied up and I was in my full clothes. Instead of more sexual, I experienced it in a more blissful and therapeutic way. Like it really allowed me to be more enlightened and more curious in exploring this realm because I had such a blissful experience um, during that act when I was being tied up and being completely restricted and just making the decision to fully surrender, dropping all my resistance and trusting the person and just accepting what is. And it just heightened up all the emotion in all the sensation in my body. And it felt so amazing and so good. And I was so excited to actually share it with Eli. And I was like, babe, let's buy ropes and let's experience this together. That was amazing. So that's the number two. And number one is multi-partner sex. So this is threesome, orgies, and gangbangs. So these are actually most common sexual fantasies that people have. So there you go, guys. That was the top 7 most common sexual fantasy. And as I've said before, I first encountered bondage. And I had a Japanese friend who actually did that to me. They call it shibari in Japan, which means the art of tying rope. And I find it really fascinating and beautiful. And that's why I was like willing to experience it, because I've seen some photos of it and it's just so beautiful. And little did I know that that experience would actually allow me to be more open and really liberate me to become more curious of these experiences. And there's so much behind those experiences. And as I've said in the past before, I definitely believe that sexuality is the final frontier for personal growth. And I am someone who is really committed into growing and learning. And I realized that in order for us to have a better understanding of ourselves and understanding towards other people, and to have a more enlightened experience of being a human being, like relationship is a gateway for that. And I see it as a very important thing to have that open communication inside your relationship, to be very open to talking about your sexual fantasies and desire. Because I think that doing all these different acts and exploring your sexual fantasies, you will be able to actually see and realize and reflect that, you know, there's something there that can be healing for you. Now, I realized when I experienced being tied up, I am so, I am someone who really wants to be certain in things. I like to lead, to take control, being a single mom, like being the breadwinner of the family. I'm used to like making all the planning. And I forgot how amazing it actually feel to let go, to trust, and to surrender. And by that experience, I was able to be reminded of it. And I also played around being the dominant person. And for me, dominant is not just about being rough, like inflicting pain to your partner, but for me, it's being the leader, being the one who lead and decide the sexual play. Like, okay, you just lay there and let me take the lead, let me do everything, and I just want you to relax and receive things. And it actually makes me feel, when I am in that role, it makes me feel powerful. I feel like I'm able to reclaim power and control, that I have the ability to actually make decision. I have the ability to make sure that you are well taken care of. And whenever I see Eli, my partner, like just being able to relax and receive what I'm able to offer, it's it's just a beautiful experience for both of us. And when I switched the role to being the submissive person, it's also so freeing, because I let myself free from thinking of what position to do, what to do, and any of that. I'm just in a place of just completely trusting and submitting to him, and just, enjoying and receiving. So for me, I think exploring your sexual fantasies, and again, experimenting and doing it together with your partner is definitely so much fun, and it could unlock a much better and deeper understanding between the two of you. So that's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And I'm curious, what are you guys' sexual fantasy? Feel free to drop it in the comment section below. And I will go ahead and do a live stream on this topic and answer whatever question you may have next week. It's going to be the same time and date, Wednesday, 7 a.m. Philippine time. So that's going to be like 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day. Take care.